Ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack. Our very way of life, our very existence is threatened. They have already taken over Washington. They continue to destroy our Constitution. It is time to take back our country now.
The Wise Conservative Show, bringing wisdom back to politics.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Wise Conservative Show. My name is Dakota Wise. The number to call in is 909-297-5812. Again, that's 909-297-5812. Now, we're going to start off today's episode with a little bit of a talk on Donald Trump, because over this past weekend, we've seen a lot coming out in regards to Donald Trump rallies. We've seen a lot of pushback from the liberal movement and, a lot of Bernie fans upset about Donald Trump. So, starting off, let me say this. If you watched last week's episode or if you listened to last week's episode, then you'll know that I came out. I think Ted Cruz would make the best candidate. That being said, I don't hate Donald Trump. I don't hate Donald Trump's supporters. I understand what they want. I understand how they feel. Just because Donald Trump is personally not my favorite candidate does not mean that I will not vote for him if he wins the primary. And it does not mean that I hate him or his fans. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about all of the ridiculousness that is surrounding Donald Trump and all of the crazy rhetoric that is coming out of the Democratic Party and the Democratic camp in regards to Donald Trump. Number one, over the weekend, perhaps the biggest story is the violence that has broken out at some of Donald Trump's rallies, and the fact that Donald Trump was forced to cancel some of his own rallies because of the threat of violence against him and his supporters. We've had Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders both come out and blame Donald Trump for the violence that has taken place at a few of his rallies. I just don't see how they're connecting the dots and blaming Donald Trump or Donald Trump's supporters. Up until now, there has been absolutely no problems in Donald Trump's rallies. I mean, you got the stray protester here and there, but they were always escorted out by security. There was never any violence, never any problems, right? This past week, though, we had in large-scale protesters coming in and disrupting the rallies for the sole purpose of just causing trouble. And it wasn't until these people came in that there was any sort of problem. Now, a lot of people are saying that these protesters, that it was their constitutional right to show up and protest. Well, yes, that's true. But they're also infringing upon the fact that it was everyone else's there, who was there to support Donald Trump, even Donald Trump himself. It was also their constitutional right to be there and support a presidential candidate in which they favor. Sure, Donald Trump makes a lot of enemies. A lot of people don't like him. But that doesn't mean these people can show up and cause trouble at the rallies just because they don't agree with what he is saying. That's just not cool. And you never see a conservative protester showing up to Bernie Sanders rallies. You never see them showing up to Hillary Clinton rallies. And why? Well, to be honest, we're not really all that interested in disrupting what they have to say. Sure, we don't agree with it, but we're not going to go cause problems and stir up violence just because we don't agree with you. But that's exactly what we saw the protesters doing at these Donald Trump rallies. It has come out, it is confirmed, that they had organized to go in and cause trouble. That was their sole purpose of showing up to the rally, was to stir up trouble. If you don't like a candidate, you don't vote for them. You don't go to their rally and try to piss off the people who are there to support him. That's not how democracy works. And if you're going to protest, you stay outside. There's no need to introduce yourself into a situation that can escalate like that. They were 100% showing up to cause trouble. And it is not, I'm sorry, but it is not Donald Trump's fault. It is not his supporters' fault. Perhaps these people need to find something better to do with their lives than show up to rallies just to cause trouble. Now, so the claims coming out of Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton's camps that it is all Donald Trump's fault, I don't see that. I don't see how you can even begin to blame Donald Trump for the Democrats who are coming into his rallies just to cause trouble. Additionally, okay, so if you've spent any sort of amount of time on social media, Facebook, Twitter, wherever, you're going to see a lot of anti-Donald Trump messages, and it's just all over the place on social media. Probably, again, because you're looking at who is on social media, it's going to be the younger Americans who trend to not really be in support of Donald Trump or any of his ideas. So it's not all that uncommon to see a post comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. Now that has to be the most ridiculous notion that I've seen in a long time. Number one, Donald Trump has not said anything inherently racist. Okay? So let's start with what people are claiming is racist. Number one, illegal is not a type of race. And there have been numerous confirmed cases of illegals raping, stealing, and just all around causing trouble. Okay? Donald Trump is not lying when there have been cases of illegals doing bad, terrible things. Now, sure, even if you want to say 99.9% of the illegals don't cause trouble like that, even that 1/10 of 1% still equates to almost 12,000 people. That's a lot of people. Additionally, if you even just consider the fact that they are here illegally, they already broke the law, they're already criminals. So Donald Trump is not lying when he's saying that the illegals are criminals, because by definition, they broke the law to get here. And again, illegal doesn't just include Hispanics, it doesn't just include people from Mexico, it includes anyone here without a valid citizenship or visa. Okay? So there's nothing racist about that. You're looking at citizenship. Citizenship is not a race. So I don't know where it's come that people are considering illegal to be a race. Okay? It just doesn't make any sense. Additionally, a lot of people go off about Donald Trump wanting to halt the refugees from coming into the United States from the Middle East. He's quite famously now said that he would halt letting Muslims come into the country until, here's the kicker, until we could establish a way to properly vet people that we are bringing in. There's absolutely no reason that we as a nation should be bringing in people, refugees, from very volatile areas that are known to hate us and everything we stand for, without having a way that we can properly vet the refugees. But Dakota, we have vetting now. President Obama has come out and said that it's perfectly safe. Right. So, actually, I looked up a list of questions that refugees are asked when they apply for their K-1 visa. So let's just go over a few of my favorites. Do you seek to engage in terrorist activities while in the U.S.? Have you ever, or do you ever intend to provide money or support to a terrorist organization? Do you have any skills or training in explosives, nuclear, or chemical experience? Have you ever been a member or have been involved in a paramilitary unit? Now, those are the questions that we're asking these people in order to ensure that they're not going to kill innocent Americans. Right, because it's so hard to lie about these questions, right? Who in their sane mind would ever answer yes to any of those? Okay? There's no moral code in terrorism that says they can't lie to the custom agents when they're trying to sneak into the United States. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that we can properly vet any of the refugees coming out of Syria to the point that we can be 100% sure they're not going to kill anyone or cause any sort of harm to our country. It is totally insane to believe we could. What are we going to do? Call up Bashar al-Assad? It makes no sense. There's no way to do it. Security officials have agreed there's no proper way to do it. And if you look to Europe and see where they've taken in just thousands and thousands of refugees, look to Germany in particular, it's caused huge amount of problems. You've had groups of these refugees going around stabbing people. You've had groups of these refugees going around raping women. It is a mess there because they took in thousands of these refugees without being able to properly vet them and ensure that they weren't going to cause harm to the citizens of that country. So it would be a colossal mistake to take in these refugees, especially at the numbers that President Obama has wanted to. It would be a huge mistake. We would be letting the monster in, so to speak, because there'd just be no way to actually ensure none of these people wanted to do harm against the United States. Moving on. I've seen it on a lot of the other conservative talk shows and the media in general, conservative media, claiming that Donald Trump is responsible single-handedly for the fall of the Republican Party. The establishment, though, has been creating this chaos that we're in right now, because right now the Republican Party is in absolute chaos. If we don't win this election, I don't think the Republican Party is going to survive. Right now we can already see that it's pretty splintered. There's absolutely no leader. There's absolutely no organization to the party. Quite frankly, it's a mess. But Donald Trump is not responsible for that. The establishment has been creating this chaos for decades. Yes, Donald Trump might be a populist. He might not be as conservative as some folks might like. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's responsible for harming the conservative movement. For decades, Republican voters have been trusting the establishment when they said, "Vote for me, I'm conservative, I'll represent you." And for decades, those very same candidates and very same politicians have failed to actually uphold what they said they were going to do when we elected them to office. For years we have been voting for the establishment who was supposedly the conservative candidate. So now it's no surprise that people are fed up with the fact that the establishment has failed them, and it's no surprise that they're willing to vote for someone who might not be as conservative as some of the establishment candidates claim to be. They've seen what happens when they vote in these politicians who claim to be the conservative choice into office. Absolutely nothing happens, and the people are quite frankly kind of cheated out of a candidate because they were lied to by the establishment. So it's no surprise that Donald Trump, despite the fact that he's not a super conservative candidate, is doing so well because people are just quite frankly pissed off at the establishment and are willing to vote for anyone except the politicians who have been in Washington for so long and failed the American people for so long. So if you look to any of the exit polls, the entrance polls coming out of almost any of the Republican primaries, the number one feeling amongst the Republican Party is anger towards the establishment. In fact, CNN just had an exit poll for the Super Tuesday states occurring today, and that was the number one feeling among the Republican voters, either betrayal or anger. So all of those votes, not all of them, Ted Cruz picks up a decent majority of those voters, but that is why you have Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, the two anti-establishment candidates, doing so very well compared to the likes of Rubio and Kasich. The American people feel angry and the American people feel betrayed. They want change, and the establishment, who was supposed to represent the conservative movement, did not provide that. So that's why they're willing to go to a candidate who is perhaps not their perfect candidate. I don't think anyone thinks Donald Trump is their perfect candidate, but he's willing to represent a lot of how they're feeling and the people like that. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
The idea behind Youth Revolt is to let them, these liberal professors, let them know that we are here and we're ready to fight.
Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
This is Dakota Wise, co-host of The Wise Conservative Show, here with an exclusive preview. I can guarantee that all of these illegal executive actions that President Obama has tried to take would be ruled legal, and the president would be allowed to legislate instead of executing the law that the Congress and the American people have put up in front of him. For more content, find us at Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative. Folks, we are back, and we're going to talk about everyone's favorite person. That could only be Hillary Clinton, of course. She's once again in the news for doing something utterly crazy. I don't even want to talk about this. She really pisses me off. But Hillary Clinton is once again drawing criticism, and rightly so, for a statement she made in which she claimed Libya was largely a success because we didn't lose a single American life. It appears that Hillary Clinton forgot about the terrorist attack in Benghazi. Go ahead and take a listen.
Kind of calculation, and we didn't lose a single person.
We didn't lose a single person.
Kind of calculation, and we didn't lose a single person.
Apparently, the woman can't even be bothered to remember about the 4 Americans that died because of her. So, a while back, I think it was 2012, Hillary Clinton spent almost a week in the hospital for falling and hitting her head. I really think that's starting to show. She can't remember the terrorist attack that happened on her embassy. She's barking at the Republican candidates. And she also, this week, made a statement that she would be more than happy to put thousands and thousands of people out of jobs because she was going to be shutting down the coal industry. Folks, I don't know how anybody can vote for that woman. If you really sit down and look at her, she's utterly a mess. Okay? She's proposed things that would put thousands of Americans out of jobs. She's said things that would completely ignore the Constitution. The Democratic Party likes to sit there and laugh at the Republicans. They're saying that our primary race is a joke. But really, sit down and look. You have a front-running candidate barking at Republicans. I think every other word that comes out of her mouth is a lie. I'm sorry, but the Democratic race is in a much sorrier state than ours is in. Wow. So, a report that came out last week, which was largely ignored, apparently put ISIS as having their children forced to play soccer with the decapitated heads of their victims in order to desensitize them to violence. Besides the fact that that's just utterly ridiculous and crazy, it's honestly our biggest problem here is that we have allowed ISIS to grow for so long that they now have these training programs for children. We've allowed ISIS to grow so long that they're brainwashing a whole new generation of Islamic extremists to hate the United States. So, even if we defeat ISIS, when we defeat ISIS, we're still going to have this problem again in a decade or so, when these children who are being indoctrinated with anti-American hatred are, of age, when they come of age, we're going to have a whole new generation of extremists in the region, and we're going to be right back there having to take military action again because we let ISIS continue to grow for so long that apparently now they have their own version of Hitler's Youth. Folks, it's just a mess over there. We've had an administration that absolutely screwed up the situation. They should have taken action. ISIS should not be a thing anymore. Instead, they continue to grow. They have their own economy. They collect taxes. For all intents and purposes, we have allowed ISIS to become a nation. And it's going to come back to bite us, because it's absolutely ridiculous that we're allowing them to train a new generation of Islamic extremists. That's why this election cycle is so important. If Hillary Clinton is elected, it's essentially a third-term President Obama, right? She's pretty much come out and said that she would either continue everything that Obama has done, or even take it a step further. But if you actually sit down and look, what has President Obama done to help the American people in any way whatsoever? I don't care which party you are, Democratic, Republican, Independent. Who has Obama actually helped? The economy is shaky. ISIS has continued to grow. Our constitutional rights have continued to shrink. His healthcare program was a complete and colossal failure. He has more than doubled the national debt. There's not a single thing that the man has touched that hasn't been messed up. And yet, Hillary Clinton is trying to continue that legacy. We can't afford a third-term Obama. The nation is a mess as it is. The American people need to wake up and see Hillary Clinton would be bad news for the country. We can't continue down the path we're going without there being some sort of ramifications for, quite honestly, the stupidity of the leadership. It's going to come back around. So that's why tonight, with Super Tuesday, Part 2, is so very important for so many reasons. Perhaps the biggest story is that we might see Rubio dropping out tonight, or possibly tomorrow, based on his performance, and it's not looking good for him. Recent polls out yesterday or the day before had him polling at 3rd place in Florida. If he can't win his home state, he's pretty much going to be forced to drop out of the race. And quite frankly, if Rubio is as truthful, if he wants to be truthful about his claim that he's trying to stop Donald Trump, then he should have exited the polls or the race 2 weeks ago. Because right now the only person, whether or not you like him, but the only person who has a chance of stopping Donald Trump is Ted Cruz. And the only way Ted Cruz even has a remote chance of surpassing Donald Trump in delegates is if it goes to a 1-versus-1 race. And depending on how Donald Trump does tonight, even if Rubio and Kasich drop out after the primaries tonight, there's still a very good chance that Donald Trump will be so far gone that even Ted Cruz, 1-versus-1, would have absolutely no chance of catching him. So I don't think Rubio is actually truthful when he says he's trying to stop Donald Trump. I think he's just like every other politician and too self-centered and self-absorbed to actually mean anything that he says. So like I just mentioned, Donald Trump has a very good chance tonight, if he performs well, of actually getting to the point where it would be extremely difficult for any of the other candidates to catch him. So the Donald Trump camp is going to be watching very hopefully tonight to see how things wind up. On the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders has been surging quite a lot actually after his surprise win in Michigan. Tonight we'll actually decide whether or not he remains a viable candidate. Now, if you look at the delegate count, it's a little bit skewed because of the super delegates. If you subtract the super delegates from the race, Bernie Sanders is only trailing by about 200 delegates. which is like a tenth of what they need. They need like around 2,000 delegates in order to win the nomination. So if Bernie Sanders had a good showing tonight, and he continues to have strong showings, there's a very real chance that he might surpass Hillary Clinton in the popular vote. And in past elections, the superdelegates on the Democratic side have always gone and matched the popular vote. So there's a very real chance that if Bernie Sanders has a good showing, the superdelegates might swing in his favor, and he still has a chance. Of course, if Hillary Clinton pulls ahead tonight, his chance is pretty much over. He's in pretty much the same place as the Republican Party. Now, I still believe that a Bernie Sanders Democratic nomination would be extremely easy for the Republican Party to beat, due to the sole fact that most of Bernie Sanders' support is college-age students. And college-age students, number one, don't turn up to vote. The youth vote is terribly unreliable. Number two, Bernie Sanders is a complete nut job when it comes to certain things. He's actually said, I've had it on the show before, he said that global warming is the largest threat that we face. He's proposed raising taxes. He's done everything that you're not supposed to do, and it's pretty much only the young generation where he's drawing most of his support. So I think a Bernie Sanders nominee, a Bernie Sanders candidate, would be a gift to the Republican Party. That being said, folks, that just about wraps up the show tonight. I'd like to thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, my name is Dakota Wise. You can find us at youthrevolt.org. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe and God bless.